The American Philosophical Organization states that women make up 21% of full-time faculty in philosophy. Through this mini-series, my goal is to engage women and feminists alike in philosophy to combat this underrepresentation. By exploring how women were treated and represented in ancient Greek philosophy, and by comparing this to the domain of feminism, perhaps something within this series will strike you. My hope is that through our exploration of the roles of women in ancient society and depictions in philosophy, that the discipline will inspire more women to be interested in philosophy. Throughout this series, we will be looking at Greek philosophy through a critical feminist eye, looking specifically at historical context, matriarchy in Greek religion, women in ancient Greek philosophy, and finally, representation of women. Starting now with part 1, here is some context on early matriarchy and how ancient Greece was organized. Historians hypothesize that around 1.5 million years ago, women were revered as priestesses and honored for their ability to bear children. Archaeological evidence, such as ancient Venus statues, seem to support this. So, despite this history of matriarchal organization, it is a fact that ancient Greece was patriarchal in every sense of the word. In this video, I want to provide historical context to the rights that women held in ancient Greece so that we can understand some of the positive steps taken by philosophers in terms of feminism in antiquity. So, you may be wondering, what was a woman's role in Greek society? Sadly, Greek women had virtually no political rights of any kind and were controlled by men at nearly every stage of their lives. Women were not seen as permanent members of their family, rather transitory members of their household, as fathers would be the kyrios for their daughters until they married. The word kyrios is the Greek word for lord or master and was often used to refer to a man responsible for a woman's maintenance. So women weren't considered autonomous in any regard. Historically, in ancient Greece, the most important duty for a city-dwelling woman was to bear children, and preferably male children. As well, despite what we see in early matriarchal organization, mothers were not respected for their ability to give birth. Instead, it was seen as a form of impurity and pollution incurred by contact with childbirth, which was met with the process of lustration, from the Latin lustratio, meaning purification by sacrifice. Now, looking more specifically at Athens, Athenian women were not permitted to represent themselves in law, though Medic women could, and a Medic was a resident alien free but without the rights and privileges of citizenship. As well, if you were a respectable woman, you could not walk around town except occasionally to a neighbor's house or to a religious service. Also, within marriage, it was not 50-50. Men could divorce their wives with no problem and even have many sexual partners without incurring the charge of adultery. A husband was within his right to lock up his wife in their home for whatever reason if he simply deemed she wasn't behaving like he thought she should. Publicly, a wife would only be seen at religious events, weddings, and funerals. Within Athenian society, a woman was just considered a wife. Now, this wasn't the case for all women, but it was for a well-respected married woman. There were also slaves, sex workers, and those who simply did not hear to social ruling. However, they were not respected in society. So this video has focused on some of the awful conditions for women. Women couldn't vote, couldn't own property, didn't have autonomy, didn't have equitable relationships, and this is barely scratching the surface of history. That said, the next video is concerned with one area that women did have power. So make sure to keep all of this in mind as we progress and evaluate representation and some important conversations within philosophy.